He arrived at the tech summit in a sharp suit, exuding leadership and confidence, but when he approached the hotel, the valet barely acknowledged him, asking him to wait outside instead. What followed would leave the entire organization stunned. It was just before 8 a.m. when Elijah Carter stepped out of his sleek, black SUV in front of a luxury hotel in Silicon Valley. He adjusted the cuff of his dark gray suit, the fabric glistening in the early morning sun. Every detail screamed precision. His crisp white shirt, finely tailored jacket, and hand-polished leather shoes. But when he approached the valet, the young man didn't even blink. Instead, the valet turned and gestured to a car behind Elijah, asking his colleague, "Can you park this one?" Completely ignoring Elijah. Holding his keys loosely, Elijah watched the valet, who refused to make eye contact. He glanced at the hotel's entrance. No fanfare, no lavish welcoming, just a quiet, glassy foyer. Without waiting for further snubs, Elijah parked his own car and walked toward the entrance. As he approached the front desk, the receptionist's smile shifted, fading almost instantly. "Can I help you?" she asked without even looking up. "Yes," Elijah replied. "I'm here for the summit event. I believe you have the Redwood Room reserved for us." She scanned his face, frowning, before asking, "Are you with one of the vendors?" "No, I'm the CEO," Elijah responded. She blinked, then asked, "Could you wait outside for a moment?" His eyes narrowed. "I'm also the keynote speaker." Her tight smile didn't change. "Please wait outside. We're still preparing the space." Just then, another staff member, a young man with a walkie-talkie, approached, eyeing Elijah. "Are you security?" he asked. Elijah responded calmly, "I'm Elijah Carter, the CEO of Carter Enterprises. I'm running today's event." After a brief, uncomfortable silence, the man motioned toward the door. "Please, just wait outside. We'll send someone to get you." Elijah took a slow breath, his patience hanging by a thread. A few early investors, including a well-dressed man in a gray suit, breezed through the lobby, greeted with handshakes and smiles, while Elijah remained at the door, ignored. Minutes passed. Elijah's phone buzzed. "Boss, did they greet you yet?" It was his assistant, Marcus. "Not exactly," Elijah said flatly, eyes still on the door. "They asked me to wait outside." Marcus's voice dropped in concern. "What do you mean, not exactly?" Elijah took a breath, keeping his tone even. "I'm the reason they are here. I organized this summit. Let me handle this." Hanging up, he adjusted his tie and walked back through the door. The receptionist looked at him, unfazed. "I thought I asked you to wait outside," she asked. Elijah responded, "I waited. Now, I'd like to speak with the event coordinator. My name is Elijah Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Enterprises. We booked this room and 2 floors for our event." For the first time, she met his eyes, but instead of apologizing, she hesitated, almost as if she were doubting his claim. "Mr. Carter," she said, pausing to check, "could you wait just a moment?" When the event coordinator, Gina, arrived, she apologized. "I'm so sorry for the confusion. Please follow me. The Redwood Room is ready, coffee is served, and the investors are arriving." But the damage was already done. Elijah had a clear message now. He wasn't someone to be underestimated or ignored. Once inside, he made a decision. "We're moving the summit to the Hayes Hotel," he told Marcus on the phone. Marcus didn't even flinch. "You really want to move the entire conference?" Elijah simply replied, "I'm not asking. I'm telling you." Within an hour, everything had changed. The investors were redirected, the staff at the Hayes were prepared, and the event began smoothly, without a single hiccup. Meanwhile, back at the original hotel, confusion reigned. Guests were leaving, quietly canceling bookings. The staff were left scrambling, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. Elijah wasn't concerned with their panic. He was already at the Hayes, standing before a room of investors, explaining calmly, "Today, I was reminded that professional respect doesn't come with 5-star ratings. It's earned, and today, I wasn't treated with the respect I deserved." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "I chose this hotel based on its reputation, but this morning, I was treated as if I didn't belong. No apologies, just cold indifference. But I believe actions speak louder than words. So, I moved everything, and now we're here. It wasn't about ego. It was about showing who he was and what his company stood for. And by the time he finished his speech, every single person in that room understood. Elijah Carter was someone you didn't dismiss. I believe in moving forward, and today, we're doing just that. Somewhere that sees us, hears us, and treats our business with the seriousness it deserves. The crowd erupted in applause, not out of pity but out of respect. In the back, Jalen watched, arms crossed, a proud smile tugging at his lips. Meanwhile, at the first hotel, the conference signage was being swiftly taken down. Maintenance staff wheeled away unused coffee urns. No one had touched a thing. Catering teams stood idle, glancing at each other, unsure whether to even begin plating the food. The manager stayed at a paper in his hands, a formal notice from Whitfield Dynamics, terminating their agreement effective immediately. No lawsuit, no threats, just a clean severance and a costly consequence. He dialed the general manager. "We lost the event," he muttered. "Ow," the voice on the other end asked. The guest, we didn't recognize him. He was the event. While the hotel scrambled to fix what they'd ignored, Elijah was about to reveal a layer they never saw coming, his own story. The day stretched into late afternoon. The sun cast long shadows across the street as Elijah sat in the back seat of the SUV, his suit jacket neatly folded beside him. No tie now, just the open collar of a white shirt and a tired look in his eyes. Jalen sat next to him, scrolling through emails on his tablet. "You sure you don't want me to write a public statement?" Jalen asked. "People are already starting to post. Someone from Marlowe and Banks took a video of you walking out." Elijah shook his head. "Let them talk. I'm not here to go viral." He leaned his head back against the seat as the engine hummed. Outside, kids rode bikes, laughing loudly. A woman in a red jacket helped an older man into a rideshare and guided him into a small dental office. Nothing extraordinary, just the world carrying on. But inside the car, there was a wait. "Can I ask you something?" Jalen said, not looking up. "Go ahead. Why didn't you just go off on them? I mean, they deserved it. After everything." Elijah didn't answer at first, staring out the window. Then, slowly, he said, "When I was 19, I walked into my first interview with a resume full of summer jobs and a GPA that should have opened doors. The receptionist asked if I was delivering food. I smiled, said no, and waited 2 hours. The interview never happened. They forgot I was there." Jalen glanced over, quiet. "I could have made noise, made a scene, but I didn't. I left, found another door, and another." He rubbed his hands together, as though remembering the cold grip of a steering wheel from years ago. "Thing is, I spent the first part of my life thinking if I just achieved enough, people would stop making those assumptions. That degrees, money, and suits would somehow speak louder." He looked over at Jalen. "They don't." Jalen nodded slowly. "But this wasn't just another receptionist. This was a whole hotel. A whole moment." "Exactly," Elijah said. "That's why I left. Because I didn't need to prove anything. I didn't need them to understand. I needed the people watching to see what it looks like when you refuse to beg for respect you've already earned." He exhaled and looked out the window again. "My father used to say, you can't force people to see you, but you can choose where you won't be invisible." Jalen leaned back in his seat, letting that settle. They stopped at a light. Across the intersection, a billboard flashed with an ad for a startup accelerator. Young faces, sleek logos, bold colors. Jalen smiled. "You ever think would be the ones running those things instead of applying to them?" Elijah smirked. "Every day, and it still doesn't feel real sometimes." The SUV pulled to a stop in front of the Whitfield Dynamics building. Glass, steel, and quiet pride. They got out. The receptionist in the lobby waved, already holding the elevator. As they rode up, Jalen broke the silence. "You ever think about telling that story, the 19-year-old version?" "Maybe," Elijah said. "Not for sympathy, but for clarity. Because people think this stuff just happens now and then. One bad day, one rude employee, But it's never just about one moment. It's about patterns, repeated, sharpened, and buried. He stepped off the elevator, briefcase in hand. You can't fix what people won't name, but you can show them how to walk away from it with their dignity intact. But what Elijah didn't realize was that his story, his quiet stand, was already moving beyond him. The fallout started quietly, not with headlines or outrage, but with a few whispers passed in the corner of conference rooms, then a handful of emails. By midweek, 3 other companies had quietly canceled their bookings with the same hotel. No statements, no protests, just a simple message: we've decided to move in a different direction. But inside those boardrooms, the conversation wasn't vague. You hear what happened with Whitfield's team. Yeah, we don't need that kind of risk tied to our name. What's the backup venue again? The hotel tried to patch the damage. A regional sales director reached out to Whitfield Dynamics, offering complimentary bookings for the next quarter, free suites for executives, even spa credits for visiting investors. The offer didn't make it past Tammy. She read it, closed the email, and marked it as handled. Elijah never replied. When trust breaks like that, he'd said, it's not something you repair with discounts. It's not a billing issue. It's about what you allowed to happen on your watch. Meanwhile, word of the relocation spread to media circles. A small tech outlet published a story, not a takedown, just a timeline. What happened? Who saw it? The shift in venue. The polite but deliberate silence that followed. But that story made its way into inboxes, then into text threads, and eventually into conversations at happy hours where young black professionals raised their glasses to Elijah Whitfield. Not because he had clapped back, but because he hadn't needed to. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't slamming the door. It's walking away from the room like it never deserved you in the first place. Back at the Whitfield Dynamics office, the boardroom was quiet. Elijah sat at the head of the table, flanked by 4 of his senior staff and 3 partners from a private equity group out of Seattle. An investor cleared his throat. We heard about the switch. People are still talking about it. Elijah leaned back slightly. Is that a problem for you? Not at all, the man said. In fact, it told us more about your leadership than the slide deck ever could. Another investor nodded. It's rare to see someone with that kind of control under pressure. That's where trust comes from. Elijah gave a small nod but didn't gloat. This wasn't about winning. It was about never playing by a rigged rulebook to begin with. Later that evening, he walked the quiet floor of the office, stopping to glance at a whiteboard filled with scribbled diagrams, sticky notes, and equations. Jalen was there too, sipping something from a chipped mug. You see the write-up? He asked. I did, Elijah said. They left out the part where the valet ignored you. They always leave something out, Elijah said. Doesn't matter. Jalen added, people know what it was. The ones who need to know, they got the message. Elijah looked over the whiteboard again. You know, when we built this place, I didn't want it to be flashy. I didn't want people to walk in and feel impressed. I wanted them to feel seen. That's the difference. Jalen nodded. They see you now. No, Elijah said quietly. They always saw me. They just never expected me to be the one signing the checks. He turned toward his office, flicked off the lights, and paused at the doorway. Let's keep building, he said. But before he left for the night, there was one more person Elijah needed to talk to. Someone who reminded him why moments like this matter. The next morning, Elijah stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, a fresh mug of black coffee in hand. The sky was a flat silver, the kind that made everything outside feel quiet and far away. There was a soft knock at the door. Come in, he said, not turning around. The door opened, and a young man stepped in. Elijah Green, mid-20s, sharp but still green around the edges. One of Whitfield Dynamics' junior analysts. He held a folder in his hand but seemed unsure whether it was the right time. You said you wanted to meet? Elijah asked. Elijah turned, gave a small nod, and gestured to the chair across from him. Elijah sat, setting the folder on his lap, but not opening it. His eyes flicked to the side, unsure how to begin. I heard what happened to the hotel, he finally said. Some of us were talking about it in the lunchroom yesterday. Elijah didn't say anything right away. He let the silence hold, not uncomfortable, just steady. I guess I just wanted to ask, Elijah said, how do you not let it get to you? How do you stay calm when it's that obvious? Elijah smiled slightly. You think I stayed calm? Elijah paused. Didn't you? No, Elijah said. I just didn't let them see it. He set his coffee down. You know what they saw when I walked into that hotel? A man standing where they didn't think he should be. Nothing else mattered. Not the work. Not the contracts. Not the conference. Just their own picture of what power looks like and who doesn't fit it. Elijah leaned forward. So why not confront them? Why not tear into them and let the world see? Because the world already sees, Elijah said. That's not the problem. The real fight isn't about proving anything to them. It's about teaching the people who come after us that you don't need their approval to make moves. You don't need permission to belong. Elijah nodded slowly. You handled it with class, he said. If it were me, I don't know. That's the thing, Elijah said. You don't have to know. You just have to remember this. Never trade your composure for someone else's ignorance. If they misjudge you, let them. But make sure the space you're building, for yourself, your company, your name, your team, never makes anyone else feel like they don't belong there. Elijah sat back, the words landing heavier than he expected. That's what it means to lead, Elijah said. You don't yell at the wall. You build a door somewhere else. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Then Elijah leaned forward, tapping the folder Elijah had brought. What's in here? Oh, right, Elijah said, startled back into work mode. New proposal from the behavioral data team. We made some changes based on your notes last week. Elijah flipped it open and scanned the first page. Good. Let's meet with the team this afternoon. Elijah stood to leave but stopped at the door. Thank you, he said. For what? For showing us how to move without ever lowering yourself. Elijah gave a quiet nod. Elijah left the room. Outside, traffic moved steadily, like the world hadn't noticed any of it. But the people who had noticed, they wouldn't forget. Because this wasn't just about one man in one hotel. It was about all the rooms people walk into, where someone looks up and sees only half the story. It was about the quiet ways power can speak through action, not reaction. And it was about rewriting the rules without ever picking up the pen they tried to hand you. If this story hit you somewhere real, if it made you think about how you carry yourself in spaces that weren't built for you, share it. Talk about it. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that show just how powerful quiet strength can be.